Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? I'm doing real good for a Friday.
He's got two sets of earbuds on. Does that tell you anything?
Yeah, and I still couldn't hear anything. So that's why we didn't give the countdown prior to the show. But today we've got a young lady on from England, and oh my goodness, whoo, she is great. By the way, she filled in on a very short notice, and let me put our banner up there. See, I'm glad this is Friday. We'll start over next week. But I want to give a shout out to Mark Stephen Pooler. He was going to be our guest today. Mark, I know you're sick. I don't know if you're watching or not, but if you are, brother, please get well soon. We look forward, Tamara and I do, to having you on the show. And Tamara, just share just a little bit about Dr. Carolyn. Did she say Opinde? Is that the way?
Yeah.
She said yes.
I may be messing. Oh, she's saying yes. Okay, good. Because
Yeah.
I may be messing with that.
Because I have the unique ability to mispronounce names correctly the very first time.
Yes. And I probably continue the cycle. So I apologize if we messed it up. No, I'm super excited to share this beautiful soul with you all. She's just amazing and just has such a journey to share with us. So I don't want to waste any time taking away other than say, hi, Jim. It's so great to see you.
It's great to see you too. It's always fun to be here. This is my favorite show of the week because this is my last one too,
Yeah,
6 shows. And also I get to spend time with Tamara.
Yeah.
We're friends, go back quite a ways there. And, it's just wonderful spending time with you. And before we bring Dr. Carolyn up here to the show, I've got to introduce the folks here a little bit to a little thing called the 6-minute webinar. We'll be right back right after this brief message.
Hi, I'm Angel Marie Monticelli with Angel Marie Shines. And I had the pleasure, the honor to go through training for the 6-minute webinar. Oh my gosh, this webinar and how it's structured and how they teach it. Thank you, Speakers Pathway Coalition. Thank you, Don McGrath and the whole team for the 6-minute webinar, because you made it so simple, easy. And the way you lined it out with the outline, I can reproduce it. And I'm already getting the engagement. I'm getting people that are coming back that are saying, oh, I love this webinar that's so short, so to the point. And I love your products and what I'm selling, but then what I'm also the services that I provide. And I do any of this because I have the framework. So thank you so much to the whole team, because the 6-minute webinar totally rocks. Thank you.
And we're back. I tell you, Tamara, I switched my microphone back, so I guess I'm okay now, right?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Because sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, she'll come on, I'll say, and I'm messing with her, and she's checking all of her things
to roll
there.
like that. He likes to mess with me, keep me on my toes.
But, oh, my goodness. Our guest today, share a little bit about the guest, about Carolyn today, if you would, please.
Sure. She is amazing. She's invested in the nonprofit sector of our world, if you will. She was sharing a little bit backstage about her journey and some of the things about all the places that she's lived and been in. I'm just super excited to get to know her and know more about her. I'm super honored that she came and spent time with us today just because of the last minute pressure she put us under, or that we were under from another situation. She relieved us from that pressure.
Yeah.
So I'm super grateful that she's here to spend some time with us, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about her. I'd rather talk with her. So let's bring her in. There you
go. Yeah, because when I told Tamara that Mark was sick and couldn't make it, I says, I can sing and play the tambourine. And she says, Jim, get a guest. So I turned to my old friend, Joshua Berglund there. He's the producer at E360 TV, and he came through with us. And ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the stage this young lady right here, Dr. Carolyn Opinde. Is that correct? Am I close on that?
That is correct. Carolyne Opinde.
Carolyne Opinde. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
I like her title, the NGO Whisperer. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on in such a very short notice. We really appreciate that. And goodness, it's just our honor to have a lady of your caliber here with us today. I'm very impressed with your resume, the work that you do. I just got to salute you right out of the gate. Bottom line.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here today. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tamara, for inviting me here.
Would you like to share a little bit more about you and your journey before we get started? Maybe a little bit about your history. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you, directly from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love to share this story because it is a story of what is possible for any woman, specifically women of color, wherever you are around the world, or people who have come from low-income countries, and what you can achieve when you set out to do it. So my story began in Kenya. I am Kenyan, born and raised in Kenya in a small village called Tambach. And so raised up in a family, mom, dad. My dad was a doctor. He passed away a while back. And my mom was into community development. And I believe my parents actually instilled the desire to work and serve people. So when I set out, I didn't want to really work in the nonprofit sector. Back in the day, it was all very new, and people used to call it social work. In Kenya, the word NGO, non-governmental organization, hadn't really been very normalized or very common, because government used to provide support for everything, So my mom started out as a social worker, working in the community, supporting other women, girls, leadership, and all that. And I saw that growing up. And my dad is a doctor, supporting local communities and helping people who cannot afford medical health care. And him going out of his way to provide this support really opened up my mind to this thing. Whatever you have, or anything extra you have, is not meant just for you. It's meant to support others. So when I got into the university, I studied mathematics and chemistry, and I was on my way to become either a statistician and to work in, like the World Bank and all that. That was my dream. Then this whole thing of HIV came into the university, HIV programs, and I was selected to be one of the peer educators. And because I was one of the leaders at the university, student leader, or in the student council, I was selected to be trained to be a peer educator, so I can train the others on prevention of HIV among young people. And that opened up my mind to the non-governmental organization, which is basically known as the nonprofit sector. So I volunteered. And when I graduated, I had a job. I interned actually with a statistics company that would do statistics around Eastern Africa. And I thought, okay, I'm going to veer off into statistics and I'm going to focus on that. My sister had ideas of me being a chemical engineer. And so there were all these ideas. Then one day came an opportunity through funding that the organization that I first worked with and that trained me to be a peer educator invited us for an interview. Now, I thought interview for volunteer work. It was a 5 minutes conversation to ask me if I am available to start working the following day. And I had 8 hours to go back to my internship job and resign, because it was internship. You can resign, just give them, 1 day notice, and that's it. And that's how I got into the nonprofit sector, and I haven't looked back, haven't gone back.
Wow. Destined to be in that space. Wow, that's passionate.
Yeah, the thing that really stands out there in her story is that with the right heart that she had, how things came to her. And that is a real key for any entrepreneur out there. When you're coming from the heart and you're looking how you can bless others, things will come to you. There's so many people that try to do what they want to do rather than have an open mind and have a very passionate heart about what their real gift in life is. And that's exactly what happened to you there, Dr. Carolyne. I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it?
It is. It is. And you know, when it happens, you don't even know that, okay, I'm going to have an open mind. I was just going with the flow.
Yeah.
And I saw something that was good, and I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to volunteer and support other students and prevent HIV transmission amongst the university community. And I thought this would be a good thing to do. If anything, all this work is usually done after 5 o'clock when I've clocked out from my job, and the work that I was looking for was very close to the university, and there are so many campuses all over the city, Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. So I thought to myself, I can do this. I can give 2 days of my time every evening, Mondays and Wednesdays, and maybe Saturdays when we have events, because we're working with students. And I thought that's something I would do. To be honest, Jim, I didn't think there was going to be any compensation. I did not even think, not even once, that there was going to be any compensation. And then there I was with a 3-year contract to implement programs, and with the possibility of salary raise after the first 3 months of probation. So I said yes. But then I remembered, have to call my parents to ask if the investment they've made for me to be either a mathematician or to go into chemical engineering would be worth it. Because as we all know, people think nonprofit sector is all volunteering, because I also thought so. I did not think that, the nonprofit sector is so professionalized, and that even brought me to what we have now as the NGO Whisperer. After that, worked there for 5 years, then moved to South Africa. At that point, I really wanted international experience, because I had worked in Kenya. And I thought to myself, surely there's more that I can do. And so I chose again to volunteer. This is really crazy. I left a well-paying job to go into a foreign country where I don't know anybody. I was in my 20s, and I told my mom, I have gotten an opportunity to either go to Malawi, one of the poorest countries in Africa, or to go to South Africa to volunteer. And we looked at the organizations, and my mom said, I like the organization in Cape Town, South Africa, because they are supporting women and girls, and they do a lot of work with people in correctional facilities, prisons. And I think you would fit very well as a role model to girls and women there. And that's how I ended up in South Africa. And I just took everything to my mom's house, and I told my mom, do whatever you want with whatever is there, because all I could carry was 20 kilograms, one suitcase, my laptop, my phone. That's it.
Yep.
And I moved
Slim
to South
livings. What a great story. So did you find that transition going from, focusing on a career in such a different scope, did you feel like, you were going this direction, just went all of a sudden this direction? Did you feel any of that, or did you just feel intuitive just to go with this direction?
I will be honest with you. At that point in my life, I was really looking to make a difference, not so much looking at the career goals that I had when I joined the university.
Makes sense.
And I also wasn't comparing myself to others who were in my class, my friends, who are now signing up, or getting a scholarship to do masters in chemistry at the University of Michigan. I had another friend at UConn. I have another friend who's actually now a professor in chemistry. So I wasn't comparing myself to them, because I knew what I had in me was very different. And yes, we started the journey together, and we were like, oh, we're going to get scholarship. We're going to go to maybe in Europe or in the United States to some of the top universities. But then something changed. And among all of us, the girls that I was with in the group, I was the only one who came out of that and got into the nonprofit sector. Everyone kind of went into either majoring in mathematics or majoring in chemistry. And this is a lesson to parents specifically. It always doesn't have to be the way it started. It always doesn't have to end that way, because people's calling in their lives sometimes progresses. It evolves into something bigger than you had never thought of.
So true.
And for us to allow young people, yes, there's guidance to ensure that they don't get into bad company. Yes, there's guidance to ensure that they are doing something productive. But it doesn't have to be a doctor because dad was a doctor. It doesn't have to be a lawyer because you have to take over the family law firm. Because sometimes what happens is people feel obligated to do these things, and they become so unhappy, and they get to their 40s or 50s and they are so unhappy that they decide to do something so drastic.
Absolutely.
I've known people in my lifetime that they lived a life that was kind of expected of them. They went through the motions. And then finally, they just got to the point, two people I've known in my life, they got to the point to say, this is it. I don't like the stress. I'm making great money and all that, but I'm going to resign here. I'm going to start working in another place, making less money. I got more time, more freedom, and I'm happy. And they just went through the motions. And that's kind of sad, because a lot of times, especially young kids, they want to follow the peer pressure of what everyone else is doing. And that's the wrong street for everybody.
Yeah,
And Tamara, I know you do a lot of counseling with people then, that probably fall into that same trap or that same ditch. They're kind of doing what, go ahead.
I was going to say, I call it dog, duty, obligation, and guilt. And when you are in a space of resistance and you're constantly bumping your head against what is expected of you, you live a lot of dog. You're stuck. If you flip dog into God, you really recognize that there's a truth to the opposite behavior. You get a chance to live a life more in balance, more joy, if you can really just resonate with that intuitive sense. Like, I love how you're talking about, Carolyne, about the following an instinct, following a desire, of like being pulled into something. Not many of us are open enough or maybe aware enough to recognize that there is something pulling us into these spaces. And it's so beautiful that you would just walk in and step in and do those things. It's so beautiful. Did you have any fear going into some of these spaces with the uncertainty? I mean, quitting your job and jumping right into a volunteer job. Was there, 20 years old, you are pretty, courageous.
And especially when you didn't think there was any money in it.
There was definitely no money in it. The beauty of the organization that I worked with is they took good care of us. They gave us good accommodation. We had health insurance, what we call in South Africa medical care. So we could go to the best hospitals, to get your glasses, dental care, whatever care you needed. The only thing we were not compensated for equivalent to the market rate for the work we did. So they hire professionals to provide technical support to nonprofits that cannot afford to have these technical people, specialists. And so I was one of them. And the beauty of it is it teaches you to value everything that you have, because all of a sudden, you don't have a car, your rent is paid for, and you always have to remind your program officer to pay your rent. So you look like you have like that mom paying rent for you. And then during winter, we used to get winter allowance to buy warm clothes because we didn't have much money.
Oh, wow. So true, right? The cycles of life, the support.
It was. And one of the most beautiful things that came out of that is I focused so much on learning how to implement programs and design programs that address the issues of the communities that we love, because I didn't have much money for entertainment, for traveling and all that. So I was immersed in this community that I was working in, and I had to every day find ways of solving the problems of the community. And that's how I came up with the NGO Whisperer, the idea that there are 7 pillars, so I may say 6 pillars for now, that help a nonprofit prosper. You need the money, and that's resource mobilization of fundraising. You need to manage your programs well, and that is project management support. You need to have a leadership structure that serves the people that you serve very well, and also lead the organization, and that's governance and organizational management. You also need to look at the risks that the organization faces. So you need to look at compliance to rules and regulations, and look at the risk and manage them as an organization overall. So enterprise risk management. Then you need to have coaching and mentorship and masterclasses for leaders and anyone who works in the nonprofit for them to be effective. And lastly is branding for nonprofits. So all these things I'm talking about, they are the pillars of the NGO Whisperer, which is a consulting business that I designed, put together, and now I'm working with nonprofits, not just in Africa, but in Europe, in the United States, in the Caribbean, Latin America region. So out of all these things that I learned through all the years of looking and searching and wanting to make a difference came something so beautiful, and here we are.
Amazing.
Really?
Amazing.
Wow. Your journey is something else. It really is. You've written a book? Have you written a book on your journeys yet? Are you going to, or?
I haven't written a book yet, but there is a book that we'll be writing very soon on governance. I am so passionate about governance. John Maxwell said, everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership is so important, not just at the organizational level, but first and foremost, all of us, we are leaders. And some of us don't lead ourselves well. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping nonprofit leaders to bring out the best in everyone who is working there. Because I know for someone to choose to work in the nonprofit sector, they were drawn by something beyond money. Otherwise, they would be at the central bank like I wanted to be, or a chemical engineer, or a doctor, or a lawyer, or whatever it is. So helping those people to bring out the best in them is so important. And I cannot emphasize this more. For people who are working in nonprofits to feel first and foremost that they are valued. And so there is a book that we will be releasing very soon. It will be focusing on personal branding, organizational branding, and leadership. And I'm co-writing it with one of our branding strategists that I work with at the NGO Whisperer, Karen KJ Johnson. And we will be providing this from the nonprofit social enterprise kind of point of view, helping leaders to position themselves, personal branding, business branding, and leadership.
Would you do us a favor, please, Carolyne?
Yes. Yes.
Would you let us know when that book is out? We'd love to have you back on the show, and that way you can show people about the book. And let me encourage you to write a autobiography about yourself, because your story would be so inspiring to a lot of young people. It really would.
That leads me into asking you, can you share a little bit again more about something that specifically, you were talking to me before the show a little bit about some kind of fun little aspect of your life that I would love for you to share with everyone without telling what it is.
Many people don't know this, but okay, maybe when I say I'm Kenyan, you think athletics.
Right, there you go.
So many people don't know this, but I went to a high school that produced some of the world's best and athletics champions, and also Olympic champions. So I went to school with Olympians. And out of that, I was not the best, because we're talking people who broke world records. So you can imagine The one who
Tough
comes
crowd to beat
last
with.
might be an Olympian in other countries, because these are the best of the best. And when I went to the university, I took on the athleticism, if I may use that word, and continued participating in tournaments as an athlete. And so my race was 1,500 meters. And so I am a medalist for that inter-university games in Africa. So then I also used to do 5,000 meters and 10,000. So I used to use the 1,500 meters as training for myself for the finishing speed. When you're finishing the race, you've got to have that finishing speed. And we would sprint all the way through. When we do the 1,500 meters, you might be aware that there are many athletes from Kenya, from South Africa, who are currently holding the world the world record for that. So that was me. And then when I was at the university, all my 4 years, when I was there studying for my undergraduate, I always went for Olympic trials. Of course, I never made it to the Olympics because I was competing with the world champions and world record holders. So, but that's just a little bit of fun about me.
Just the courage to be able to put yourself in the space to compete with that is tremendously awe-inspiring. Just because I think a lot of us fear showing up and failing. And you put yourself up there again and again and again just to see what would happen. You know, it's very courageous. It's beautiful. Love that.
Thank you so much. I'll be glad to say that out of all the Olympians, I used to come last because I never went to any Olympic championship.
Well, let's be honest. You didn't want to embarrass them. That's what it was.
Oh, that's great.
But my time, I would say, my time was always better than some countries who took their representative to the Olympics.
So you sat back and giggled, said, "Oh, this is going to be fun," knowing their best was not as good as your time against.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
You know, this morning we were visiting, on the Zoom call there, and we were talking about your life there in Kenya, and we were talking about, I was talking about the sparrows out here in Texas with the snow. We were putting out the black oil sunflower seed, and how aggressive they were getting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I mean, the little sparrows were chasing away the cardinals. It's just like you take a bucket of corn and throw it out there in a chicken yard, how the chickens automatically get real aggressive and pick that corn up. And then she started telling me about her life growing up on a farm. And would you be kind enough to share that with us, please?
Absolutely. I grew up in the rural areas in Kenya. My dad was a doctor, and he was posted in one of the most rural areas in the country. And so what happens is in Kenya is the medical doctors or nurses, they have like quarters or living quarters very close to the hospital where they can just quickly, walk and go to the hospital in case of an emergency. And so we had all sorts of animals. We had goats, we had sheep, we had chicken, we had pigeons. At some point we had rabbits because my brothers wanted the rabbit. And guess what? The responsibilities to take care of these animals rested on all of us.
On all of you. That's good. At least not on you alone.
Not on me alone. I come from a big family, 8 children. I'm the youngest. So the youngest used to get the lightest job, and my job was to get food for the rabbits. The rabbits were my brother's rabbits, but I don't even know how the decision. I don't know how I was involved to taking care of them.
I got delegated onto you.
I wasn't consulted, but they looked so cute. They were pure white chinchilla rabbits. For those who know rabbits, they were pure white chinchilla rabbits with pink ears. And so they looked so cute. And I just used to love spending time with them. And so maybe that's why my mom just thought, okay, that's your responsibility. And the chickens also. So feeding the chicken and giving them what we call the layers mash.
Right.
The special kind of food that has been made to help them lay eggs and be healthy, and it has all the minerals. And so my job, it wasn't so bad because I didn't have to clean it, the chicken pen. I just had to go and put the food and water and then go to school. So that's how I learned responsibilities, and that you have to do it very early in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah. You literally had to get up with the chickens, as the old saying goes.
Yeah. we had a cock that used to crow at 3 a.m. nonstop.
He was beating to his own drum, huh?
Yeah.
What's your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory is taking a walk with my dogs, mostly. So it's not just my dogs, but our family had many dogs. At some point, we had 9 of them. And my favorite memory is when we used to take an afternoon walk and take the dogs for a walk, and the entire family, mostly it was us kids, mostly my brothers and I, running around and the dogs chasing us. That was beautiful because we grew up in the rural areas. And as you know, when you start running and the dogs follow you, there is just so much excitement. And I can almost feel that right now. And just looking at Jim's background, that's what we used to have, that, I open my doors, my windows, and that's what I see.
Wow.
So that was one of the most beautiful childhood memories. I always cherish it. And I miss it now that I live here in Manchester and it's in the middle of the city.
Sure you do. Yeah.
Miss nature, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting. People grow up in the country, they can adjust and live in the city, but people who are born and raised inside of a city and, they think about living out in the country, they go like, oh my gosh, where's the nearest convenience store, they almost hit Panicville. They, well, what do you do when you need something? Well, we get in the car or the truck, we crank it up and we drive it to town. It's just amazing. And
that's funny.
Here in Texas, I was sharing with Tamara before the show. Sometimes living in the country does have its advantages because there's a cell tower with the emergency signals up there too. The antennas, I should say. And rather than run a separate power line all the way out here, they just tied us into the same grid. So with all the power outages and the rolling outages and all that, because we were tied in on the same grid as that communications tower, we never lost power here. And I was telling Tamara before the show, I was there for a while. I thought maybe I was living right, Then I realized it was just dumb luck, more than anything else, because a lot of people, my family especially, they've been without power, and here in Texas, and, that's tough. They couldn't come here because of the roads.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how, people in the country can, they can adjust and live in the city, but folks who grow up in the city, living in the country would be just like, putting them out on the moon or somewhere, it's just kind of like, whoa, they can't handle that. One of my buddies, he grew up in New York City, and I met him in Vietnam. And I thought Vietnam was a shock for me. And it was a real shock for him out in the boonies, And so I tip my hat to you on that, because once you're growing up in the country, you have a longing to live in the open spaces with like the mountains behind me and, being around nature and all that. It just gets in your DNA, it really does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of which, I'll share a little story. So when I lived in South Africa, there were lots of power cuts because of what we call load shedding, something similar to what you have now. And I once told my mom, we don't have electricity. I don't know what to do. And, my mom, she has her own solar. She generates her own electricity using solar energy. And so she was like, what's wrong with you people? Just buy a solar panel
and pop it down.
Put it up there. And, I lived in Cape Town, so there isn't so much sun during winter. And I was like, Mom, it's during winter. She's like, oh, that's a bummer. Now I understand why you complain all the time about not having power. Like, make a plan. Buy your own solar panels, fit them on your roof, have solar energy. When there's power cuts, you won't have a problem with that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I tell you, it's, thinking about, what you're like, your life and all growing up. And I mean, when you're talking about your animals, you're obviously a pet lover from day one. I mean, it's just, pets are, as we were talking earlier, pets are a great way to teach children how to love something and to be responsible for something and care for something. And that's really important because that's the foundation of creating the right kind of heart to be a good servant to serve others.
Mm-hmm.
And and that obviously played part in your life too, because there was something in that gift that you automatically had that called you to these other areas and to help you, go and grow.
Absolutely. And I'm a dog lover, even though right now we don't have dogs because of all the things that are happening. I moved from South Africa to the United Kingdom and all that, and we live in an apartment building where there are no pets allowed. But I'm a dog person through and through. My mom is a cat person, so it's so interesting because in my family, it seems like everyone seems to be a dog lover. I haven't really done the statistics to see who is a cat lover and who's a dog lover, but it so seems that the cats usually follow my mom and the dogs follow the kids. And they are just like, the cats kind of take after my mom and her mannerisms, and they behave in a certain way, the way she is, and take off, like her character, and they like to talk, next to her and all that. And one thing I learned about animals is when you have animals and you treat them in a certain way, they are these loyal friends who never become disloyal to you. And you learn loyalty and friendship from animals. And I saw that Jim and Tamara, I saw that when my dad was ill. He died of cancer. But when he was ill, our dogs, because we lived very close to the hospital, at some point, our dogs would literally want to go into the hospital to actually sleep under his bed. Sometimes, they would allow them to come in because the dogs wouldn't stop barking. So they would allow them to come in, and they would go and sleep under his bed to keep him company. And we're not talking about one dog. We're talking about Labradors and German Shepherds, huge dogs that would scare people. And they were the most beautiful animals I can always remember. I mean, they would come there and keep him company.
Wow.
And that is so beautiful. Even the nurses will be like, oh, Dr. Opinde's dogs are here. And people will be like, are they going to bite us? They'll be like, no, they're just here because the doctor is in and you would know when my dad is in the hospital that there are dogs. There'll be dogs everywhere.
Oh,
and they wouldn't stop
dog spirit.
circling around. They wouldn't stop circling around the hospital until they're allowed in. And sometimes they would bark so hard that other patients would be like, can someone please let the dogs in so we can sleep?
Wow.
That's the power of just taking care of animals and loving animals and all that. And it's also interesting because we had pigeons at home, and the pigeons would just fly and follow you. When you treat them well, they follow you everywhere you go. And that's where I learned the value of commitment, the value of loyalty, the value of providing and creating bonds with people who are around you. One thing that I always tell people who work with me is, as long as we work together, and even once we stop working together, I would like us to have great relationship, so that if someone asks me about you, that I will say beautiful and wonderful things. And yes, there is conflict in the place of work, but let's have and build this relationship and make it so beautiful and so good that if there is conflict, it will always come from the point of, I see what you are saying. I may not agree with it, but that doesn't change
Right.
what I feel in my heart for you as a
Oh,
fellow
yeah.
human.
Amen. I love that because, you know, there's so much nonsense going on in the world and so much hate and so much fear and all that. And if we just focus on, you know, coming from the heart and love, you got to love yourself first because you can only give something that you've got. And if you
Yes.
love yourself first, then you share love with others. And everyone that you've ever seen do that in your life, you look in their eyes. There's a light in their eyes when they help others with the heart of love. There's just something about them, just a reflection of joy just seems to shine right through their eyes. And that's something that just never, you know, it's a wonderful sight to see. And it's a wonderful experience to be able to help someone in their hour of need. And especially when you don't consider it to be that big of a deal. And they're just, you know, so thankful for, you know, the little things that you do, because it's always the little things that you do. A lot of times people want to set out and do things in a grandiose kind of way. That's all ego. All you got to do is just, you know, maybe, you know, send them a text, a message, a call, email, whatever, and just say, I'm thinking of you. You know, just thought about you this morning. You know, hope you're doing well. Hope you're blessed. Like I tell some of my buddies, I hope you're blessed more than you deserve. You
That's
know?
awesome. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because it means a lot whenever someone reaches out to others, and especially when you can do a little thing for them. It really means a lot more to them than you could ever imagine. Plus the fact when you do that, you're going to get paid back somewhere down the road, not necessarily from them, but when you pay it forward, it always comes back to you.
Absolutely.
That's what Zig Ziglar used to say. You can get anything out of life that you want as long as you help other good people get what they want.
Absolutely.
And Solomon wrote in Proverbs that the generous person, by watering others, will be watered themselves. Look at the prerequisite there. You got to do it first before you will be watered. And so many times in life, you run into people who are just interested in what can you do for me right now? And they really cheat themselves out of the true riches of life. They shortchange themselves. They're not happy. They don't get the breaks that others do, and they wonder why. Well, you know, when you start coming from the heart, all your barriers are automatically torn down. That's just a universal law. And Tamara and I have experienced that, you know, even with this show. And yeah, it's just been a blessing for us, hasn't it, Tamara?
Yes. You know, when you were speaking, what it reminds me of is if you want good things in your life, you have to show up first with the good things. You can't, you know, it's like if you come up with a sour attitude, you're going to get sour attitude back to mirror you back. So it's always important to show up with your best self. So, yeah.
One of the things that I like to share with people, I use the network here that we've got together, and we're working together. It's kind of like a potluck. It really is, because everybody brings their special dish, what they can offer. And we all share our dishes with each other. It's kind of like a potluck. There's plenty to eat. There's plenty left over. And everybody had a wonderful time. And that's what we're doing here with the network. So if you're out there and you're a solopreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to find something that works for you, look for people who have the same kind of heart that you do. People who are interested in helping you. And you've got to be interested in helping them, because it's a win-win situation. You can't do it alone. But to look for people, and when you look for people from the heart like that, they will come to you. You don't have to worry about ringing doorbells or anything like that, or sending out 45,000 emails or anything like that. It comes to you. That's the universal law. And that's the blessing in life. So many people miss that because they're stuck in the physical about how can I do this? How can I do that? Relax. You know, love people and try to treat people like you want to be treated, or better than you want to be treated. And the rest will fall into place. And I love your story, how you just, you know, you came from the heart and you were going right along there and you thought, okay, nonprofit, okay, I didn't even think about money. We're going to get paid for this? Oh, okay, I can do that. That's really cute. I really do appreciate that. I really do. It just goes to show you what an open heart that you had and a desire. the passion.
And an open mind. It's like
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
Going in one direction and all of a sudden just being uprooted and going a different direction. I think there's not
Yeah.
many people who can have clarity when they're feeling that, that redirect. So it's beautiful.
Mm.
Absolutely. I wanna go back to what you said, Jim, about giving and not expecting something and doing more than, or giving more than you are going to receive. One of the things, the way my mom puts it this way is make a deposit in people's lives more than you expect to withdraw from them.
Mm.
So whatever deposit you put in someone's life, give more than what you will get from them. And I've tested that theory. When I moved to South Africa, my mom told me two things. She said, actually three things. She told me, number one, represent the family well. Wherever you go, whatever you do, just so know that you are carrying the name Opinde, and we want you to represent that name very well. We won't be there, but remember, God is watching you, and we are saying to him, so represent the family well. Number two, she told me, find a faith-based community, a church that you can belong. Find an equivalent of an auntie or an uncle family that you can go to if you are in moments of crisis and you need a family, a mother figure and a father figure. And I didn't know how to do that. I was like, Mom, you're telling me all these things and I'm leaving tomorrow and I'm not even prepared. How are you just going to immerse yourself in someone's family and you become close to them? And then number three, she told me, don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. Because you're going to different cultures, different people, and sometimes people forget where they came from. And they embrace all these new things, and especially with the young generation, as we call them, woke. And you think you are woke, but you're forgetting the values that we taught you growing up.
Wow.
So those three things, I went into South Africa in my 20s. I went into South Africa and I started looking for places of worship that I could go to and build a community and meet people. Because there's a lot of things happening. There are drugs, there's all sorts of things. There's human trafficking, there's all sorts of things that if you're not careful, you can easily fall into the trap and become one of the statistics. And so I thought about it so hard. And quite interesting, the first community of believers, I'm a Christian by faith, there are people of all faiths watching, but I'm just sharing my experience. The first community of faith that I kind of connected with, to this very day, I am friends with them. They were not old enough to be my mom and dad, but they are young pastors starting out a church, and I started worshiping with them. To this very day, I am friends with them. Testimony number one was that out of what my mom put in me, the values, I took it. So I learned to deposit more than I could get out of it. Started things, volunteering for the church, doing stuff that I could do. I didn't have much money, so there was not so much financial support, but my presence there made a difference. At that time, I didn't know that I was making this big deposit, but indeed I was. And I was just making myself available to them and the church and the things they needed. The second thing is, when you find a community that you belong in, value them as if they are your family, if you don't have any family there. So I did that. We had birthday celebrations together every year. And interestingly, they've relocated now. They're in the United States. Guess what? On their birthdays and on my birthdays, we still call each other.
Nice.
So the deposits and the small things that you do, and I think they did more to me or gave me more than I deposited. I don't know who gave more to what, but I was there and I just listened to that. And why am I sharing this? during this COVID pandemic, many people are looking for help. And you will notice that people want to deposit into other people's lives. Don't shy off from allowing people to deposit into your life or give into your life. It doesn't matter. It could be a phone call, someone reaching out to you and calling you, an old friend from high school, an old friend from university, reconnecting. Allow them to come in because they've been called to deposit into your life. So welcome people back into your life, reconnect with people, deposit into other people's lives if you disconnected with them at one time, and forgive people. Forgive people who wronged you, call them, forgive them, let it go. Because it's really important, because this new normal that we are all stepping into, we are stepping into a place we've never been before. And so it calls for all of us to collaborate, to work together. And that's why even at the NGO Whisperer, we say our slogan is connecting people, it's raising funds, and it's impacting lives. When people are connected with one purpose, we'll be able to raise the money or the resources that's required. Some people will give their time, some people will give finances. And together, we can impact lives. So if you take that, whichever way you want to take it, connect with people, raise whatever resources you need to do, whether it's a family, whether it's family projects, whether it's community, whether it's an organization, then impact lives. Make sure everything that you do, as much as it's benefiting you, you have a business, but it's changing somebody's life. That's what I live by.
I really love the way your mother explained that about deposit in someone's life. When you use the word deposit, the thing that comes to my mind is pure value. And because that's the only thing you can deposit is something that's got value to it. And deposit more in their life than you're willing to withdraw. I mean, I just really, that just sings my song as far as making an impression with me. I like that. And your mother's a very wise woman and the advice that she gave you, my goodness gracious. You know, Tamara, just think about a lot of young people going out, leaving the nest for the first time. If they heard that wonderful advice from Caroline's mother, what a difference it'd make. Other than thank gosh you're leaving, it's about the only advice my dad gave me when I went in the service. He says, son, I want to tell you something. I said, what's that? He says, if you don't want to be treated like an idiot, that's my dad's words. That's the way he talked. He says, do yourself a favor. Don't act like one. And that's just, that was his advice to me. I thought, well, okay, I think I can handle that. But I mean, he was just, and he also said the same thing about remember, the family name's important, and he was very big on that, very big on that. I heard that a lot growing up, a lot. And it was so valuable to him. And, like we talk about your mother and all that. My goodness gracious, what a beautiful and a wise woman. Goodness, you were very, very blessed to have a mother like that. The wisdom, and it kind of reminds me on the humorous side of the 50-50-90 rule that applies to all guys. Have you ever heard of that one? I think Tamara has, hasn't she?
No, I haven't heard that one.
50-50-90 rule. If a guy has about a 50-50 shot at doing something right the first time, if he doesn't listen to the wise advice from his wife or the lady in his life, there's a 90% chance he's going to go out and bolo it right out of the gate.
I love it.
I can testify that's true.
That is awesome. That's great.
But doctor, I tell you, it's just been, we got about 7 minutes left, something like that. 6 minutes. It's just been so great having you with us here on the show. And I'd like to give you just a couple of moments, open mic time, just to share what's ever on your mind, what's in your heart that just comes to your mind to share with the audience, if you would, please.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor and a pleasure. I want to speak to people who are in the nonprofit sector. Anyone who is interested in working, volunteering for a nonprofit. philanthropists who work with nonprofits who give financial support, whether it's in kind or financial. I want to speak to people in government who support work that nonprofits do, whether it's in policy development or it is actually, collaborating and working with nonprofits to implement projects in whichever sector it is. I also want to talk to, funding agencies, large organizations that fund nonprofits like your USAID, you are bilateral, multilateral organizations, UN agencies. Mm-hmm. And these are individuals, they are people. I know we mention all these, I mean, they look so big and they are unreachable. But they are individuals, they are people. So I want to speak to them. One of the things that really breaks my heart, especially now with the COVID pandemic, is nonprofits closing their doors to the people that they serve because they could not get the much needed unrestricted funding to be able to use that money in whichever way they could to implement programs. So for those who may not know, within the nonprofit sector, there are two types of funding that you can receive, or resources or finances. You can either receive restricted funding, which is money that is catered for a specific project for you to implement it, and you can't use it for something else. And then there is funding that you're given, and the donor could say, I love the mission and the vision of your organization. I trust you. And I want to give you $100,000 or $1 million, and you can use it to further the mission of the organization. So I don't care if you will use it to expand the building, to renovate, but as long as it furthers the mission of the organization. Mm-hmm. I want to call out to these organizations that fund nonprofits, funding agencies, philanthropists. During this time of COVID-19, so many nonprofits are dealing with issues that were not written in the contracts that they signed with you. Mm-hmm. So those contracts were signed maybe in 2019 or in 2018. And things have changed so much, and nonprofits are needing to pivot, as we all are doing. And I'm asking you to allow nonprofits to be flexible enough, trust nonprofits to be flexible enough to be able to do the work that they do with the funding that they have. Most of the nonprofits that I work with actually face this issue. And we've had to go to the funders to ask them for reallocation of funds to address other issues that have emerged. So that's my one plea and request that I would like to put out there. The second one, if you allow me, is value the nonprofits that are near you. Make a commitment to contribute to those nonprofits on a monthly basis. Sometimes you don't even need to give a lot. You just have to, forgive me, Starbucks, but I'm just going to ask people to quit buying Starbucks for a certain period of time and give that to the nonprofits that are serving the communities near them. Because that funding, if you give, can you imagine if 1 million people gave $7, how much would that per month?
Yeah. And look what little they'd have to give up to be able to be just one small part of that million, and the impact it would make because of strength in numbers. My goodness gracious. That's just a wonderful plea. And I'm glad we had the opportunity to allow you to be able to take that to the audience and share it with them, because what you said right there, or something I've never even thought of. I hadn't looked at it like that, about how the nonprofits have to pivot during this time. We normally think, it's restricted to businesses and nonprofits continue on business as usual, but, I just hadn't thought about it. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And Tamara, I tell you, it's just been wonderful to have Carolyne with us today. And please, please let us know when your book comes out. And when you write that autobiography, I'm wanting you to write there, we would love to have an autographed copy of it from you, because it would mean a lot to us. Because I know your story is so unique and so valuable. She's going to touch a multitude of young people, isn't she, Tamara?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, your idea, your ability to adapt and see opportunities, powerful. Be a great story to share for sure.
Really
Thank you
would.
so much. May I invite nonprofits to our free masterclasses?
Sure. I forgot about that. Oh my goodness. Please do. I'm sorry.
Every month, at the end of the month, on Saturdays at 10 a.m. EST, we offer a 2-hour free masterclass to educate the nonprofit sector. So we bring in specialists in different fields. For example, on February the 27th, which is in the next 2 weeks, at the end of the month, we will have a change management specialist, a director of the Human Change Management Institute, who is responsible for the whole of Africa, to come and train nonprofit leaders and employees of nonprofits on how to manage the change that we are experiencing right now with COVID. So every month we have a theme. And the way to get there is just to go to our website and ngowhisperer.com/masterclass. So if you go to our website, you go to the masterclass section and you subscribe. This one is for free. Otherwise, we always offer 4-week training, and those ones are paid for, and they are very affordable for nonprofits people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be in the description of the show too, the website, both of them, the masterclass, and that way you just click on it and go. And most importantly, thank you so much, Carolyne, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Tamara, I tell you, it's just, just another great show, and it's because of our guest. And our time is gone. We're about ready to get the plug pulled on us. But we had a wonderful time. Time flies when you're having fun. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for sharing the show. And please share this show with someone that you know that could benefit from it. On behalf of Tamara and Carolyne, I'm Jim Grant. Thank you so much. Have a blessed weekend. Love yourself first, then you can love others. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.